Christian, how are you encouraged working on this sermon?
Yeah, I think the idea that justice is so certain that it is coming, that we actually have hope of that, I think it's just encouraging to me. Just thinking about everything that's going on in the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate the emphasis of the sermon. The good news is that God is dedicated to justice,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what,
Mm-hmm.
and that's good news.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb.
Yeah, Christian, I was challenged by some of your questions in there about, are we different? Just trying to bring us closer to people who are in trouble here,
Yeah.
and thinking about that, and so that's just humbling. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was honestly encouraged and challenged just by your personal. It was very clear that like you do care
Mm-hmm.
about injustice.
Mm.
And so even that, like, and demonstrating it from the passage as well, but just particularly your personal concern for that was kind of encouraging and convicting to me.
Mm.
What was an area that you thought, oh, this was not what I hoped it would be?
Yeah. I think as I try and slim things down, I find that there are just moments where it's like, oh, either like the phrasing of that was not quite helpful, or like didn't, or like just things that like I'll kind of claim or assert that's like, I'm not sure I have backed that up, you know? So I think because it's more, trying to be more in like the preaching moment and trying to not be as tied to this, yeah, I think there are moments where I'll just realize, even just like looking at you guys and then thinking about like what I just said, like, oh, I'm not quite sure that was the right way to say that, or shoot, actually I need to say this first and then say that.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Sure. Theo?
There are like a couple of times you made some pretty like blunt statements
Mm-hmm.
that I think I just think you should just be like careful to like qualify some of these statements. The Bible is on your side, God is on your side. It's like I would have just like qualified it a little bit. It's like on this point.
Oh shoot, I kind of thought I said that, so that's helpful to hear.
Yeah.
That. Yeah. Okay.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, that's helpful.
We'll have to watch the tape.
Yeah, yeah. Were there other kind of statements that stuck out to you that you were like, oh yeah, that's.
It was a lot more heavy in like the first part of your sermon. It wasn't
Yeah.
so much in the second part.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think once you like got more comfortable, like
Yeah.
you were a little bit better at like qualifying.
Yeah. That's helpful.
I mean, I think you didn't convince me
Yeah.
that it didn't appear to me that you would have been convincing to social justice people that they were unjust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right, like your whole line, like
Yeah.
we're also guilty, and
Yeah.
we're trying to get ahead
Yeah.
and pulling others down.
Yeah.
Like I just feel like
Yeah.
I know I'm self-righteous enough that
Yeah.
I actually would think that it would be better under me,
Yeah.
and I imagine they probably would too.
I mean, that's what they're doing. Yeah, no, that's helpful. I think like there are times like that where I know that that's a jump to make. Like I know that I need to make that connection, and so I just kind of put it in there.
Yeah.
But I don't actually think about like, all right, what's a really
How can I demonstrate?
convincing way of demonstrating that? And so then it's in the moment, and it's like, oop.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
did you feel that when
Yeah.
you were there?
Yeah. That was a big moment where it's like, oh no, like I'm claiming that we also are unjust.
Yeah.
And I don't have the like I think there's some, like, I think some people would recognize that. I
Right.
think me trying to demonstrate that hopefully helps. But yeah, I think a lot of people would be like, no, that's not true, So, yeah, that's helpful.
Caleb?
So, I think homiletically, I had trouble following.
Hmm.
When you got to some transition, once you moved to verse 3.
Yeah.
Before that, I was just I was a little bit lost. Like, where are we?
Hmm.
How are you arguing for God's commitment to justice from this passage?
Hmm.
I was having trouble with the clarity, I guess.
Yeah. I wonder about that because sometimes there's like a pretty like formulaic of like, this is my point, these are the verses. And I wonder about that in like non-Christian settings.
Mm-hmm.
Is that too kind of formulaic? Does it feel weird? Is there a way to do it
I
better?
think you have to do that. Like, I got your 2 points.
Because I didn't do that, but I felt it a little bit of like, do people know where we are right now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What were the 2?
What justice does he promise, and how do we know it will come?
Okay.
Were those the points that?
Yeah, those are pretty much like the big, like, questions. So I have like God's justice, God's word, which are like the answers to those. Yeah. Yeah, even stuff like saying your homiletical points, like that just feels very like church to me. And it could just be that's me, it's all
You
internal.
could have even just done something like, we're going to answer 2 questions.
Yeah.
Here's the first question.
Yeah.
Do it.
Would you kind of delineate the verses that we're in? Or
It's up to you.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's food for thought.
Yeah.
You got it. I didn't get it. So.
No, I think a lot of it is internal for me. Is like I kind of react against that as it feels very churchy, and so I just like try and strip away as much of that as I can. But I think it also, you lose a little clarity there. So that's helpful.
Well, I think the parts where I struggle to follow you is, it wasn't always clear to me where you were in the, like, it seemed to sit pretty loose to the passage.
Yeah.
And I wasn't always sure that the passage was answering what you said it was answering. For example, in your point 1, the justice that he promised, like, it actually doesn't say anything about justice there, or the kind of justice that he's promising.
Yeah, I guess I was going for kind of like, maybe it's more like extent, but just like God's justice is going to be total, impartial, like kind of the flavor
so
of it.
an impartial justice,
Yeah.
where even the religious, right?
Yeah.
Like, because that's something more to what you argue, because you did a lot on the family thing there. And religious people aren't going to escape. And that's how you got to like, well, where are we going to, well, that was later, like, where do we find safety?
Yeah.
But you did say not even his people are safe.
Yeah.
It sounds like a God worth believing in.
Yeah.
So I think the kind of justice, this kind of impartiality, that
Yeah.
might have been helpful, because to me it's like family language, and for the text you pointed out, it's because they're family
Yeah.
that they have a higher obligation.
So I'm maybe not tracking with you, because I thought the question I asked was, what kind of justice does God promise? Is this like impartial justice? Is that not what you
think
got?
it is that,
Yeah.
but that was not clear to
Okay.
me what you meant when you said what kind of justice.
Oh, okay.
I just thought like, and you said like his justice. Even that's just how you answered it, right? Like
Yeah.
a minute ago. But to me, it wasn't clear that you meant like it's
Yeah.
an impartial justice, that there's no favoritism even for kids, right? Like,
Yeah.
So, and then you can just like there are illustrative opportunities there for like nepotism and
Right.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
Which would drive us nuts. So yeah, that was just kind of, and then the second one, same thing, like, how can we be sure God's word? It's like, yeah, okay, like he's spoken, so it's for sure gonna happen. I think on that second point, I just didn't think that you telling people that because
God said
God's
it.
word said it, that
Yeah.
that's gonna be super.
Yeah, that's the thing is like, that is sort of the answer though, is like God said it, and like to Israel that's.
And so it was supporting your main point of God is our only hope for justice?
Right, because God's word is our only hope for justice. Because God's word is our only hope it's actually going to happen, but then it's also actually our only hope for like rescue or escape from that justice.
Yeah. I have to think on it for a
Yeah.
little bit. I just remember feeling like,
No, I felt it too. As I'm
Yeah.
saying, it's like, yeah, but a non-Christian. I think I was trying to go for like, all right, if this God is actually real, then his word should be like a guarantee, you know, whatever God. But again, yeah, it's not.
Yeah. Right.
Right. And to Israel, Israel's people are God, your God, like his word is speaking, you know, that's the guarantee it's going to happen.
You almost could have lived on like 6 as a trumpet blowing in the city of the
Right.
people are afraid, because actually all disaster and judgment does ultimately come from God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I just remember like if there's something that needs to be worked, maybe even just saying because God says so might not be persuasive to a crowd that is hating Christians.
Right.
I don't have a greater solution than that.
Yeah.
Theo, you got another one?
Just a minor, like, one, I think, at the beginning of your sermon, you talked about, like, religion, I think this is another one of, like, those, you should probably qualify this, like, religion is a source of oppression.
Mm-hmm.
But then the example you gave to back it up were Uyghurs, who are Muslims, who are being persecuted for their religion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I'm kind of going off of like with the Myanmar one, makes more sense because it's like a Buddhist oppressing another.
Yeah.
And China is kind of like sort of this atheist. Like, so in my mind, it's a religion, but yeah, it's probably not the best example.
Yeah. It's very minor. Your point.
No, that's helpful. That's helpful.
Just like little stuff, like to make sure like, all your illustrations like line up.
Yeah.
Caleb, you got another?
This is another minor thing too. You raised the question, how can we know if God is pleased with us? I think in maybe the back half.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you answered it, but I actually didn't catch if you answered it.
No, that's good. The idea was like, you know, his word's going to tell us, you know, but I don't think at least answer that very specifically. That's helpful. That's helpful.
Also, this is just food for thought too.
Yeah.
With could be helped maybe by this is me compared to the audience you were talking to, but by a definition of justice, since it's this huge thing. Like, what does it mean? Maybe even here. Anyway.
Yeah.
I'm still thinking about that point too.
Yeah.
But when you talked about part of your gospel connection, so how do I know justice will come? Because it came. But that second sentence almost seems to short circuit the idea of like future one, and it wasn't like immediately clear. You didn't spend a lot of time there.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's going to be future because it was past, and like that makes sense to us.
Yeah.
But I think it could have used a little bit more.
Not super clear.
Like,
Yeah.
And also the same kind of thing of like you're telling these people that they need to be rescued back into a life of justice.
Yeah, I was sort of trying to draw on like Israel had a special relationship with God, but like we all, in one sense, are like created by God. So yeah, but again, not super clear.
But I also think that these people might be like, well, I'm already living a life of justice. The same kind of thing where like you may not have actually convinced them that they need that rescue. was something that you thought did work well, or something you tried?
I think like a lot of like what encourages me and like what I think it's not so much like the rhetorical like expression of it, but I feel like the kind of contextualization of Amos 3 to the non-Christian world of like where do we find justice, and trying to winsomely, God is worth believing in because he is a God of justice. So yeah, however, whether or not that came across, I think that is that was not a bad way of connecting and engaging. So.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit like earlier, like you wanted to see if like you can like pull this sermon off like without like illustrations and jokes.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that like, I thought you did like pretty well, and I'm not even really sure how to describe it, but like how you played with like the middle section of cause and effect was like, it was really good, and it was really useful for me. Like you were asking the questions in such a way like where I was like, well, obviously, no, like that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was like, I was pretty engaged in like that whole section.
Yeah.
So it was just like, I don't know exactly, like you switched up your pace a little bit. There was a little bit of a briskness. It was like, and then the way you're asking those questions, like, would this ever happen? Would that ever happen? Would this ever happen? I thought that was like, and then the obvious answer is like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So I thought that was like a good way to do this without leaning too much on other stuff.
No, that's helpful. That's helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, to affirm what you said, Christian, I thought you did great with handling Israel then, and kind of bringing that and talking about Christians today, and I think that's hard to do, and you did a good job at it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Just trying to, explain it simply. That was good.
I loved your use of questions throughout. At the very beginning, like, is there any place for faith and justice? Kind of like arguing against it, right? Like conceding a lot up front.
Yeah.
And what justice does he promise? Where can you and I find safety? How do we know that it will come? Then even though like it didn't quite land right, your attempt to like get the people to see themselves as guilty also, you did it with questions. Like I said, like, would it look much different, right? You didn't say that would have been way worse, but like, you and I know it wouldn't look any different.
Yeah.
And you're like, yes it would.
Yeah.
But if you ask, like, it's a little bit kind of better way into that.
I'm trying to get better at that. Yeah. I think normally I just like, I'm like, come on, we wouldn't.
Right.
Which isn't
people
helpful.
Want to resist that.
Right. And so trying to do it as questions. Yeah.
So that was a good use, especially in that section of it.
Yeah.
It didn't quite land, but even just the use of questions made it better than it would have been otherwise.
Yeah.
I would like reaffirm like that statement. I think it was the right question to ask. I was like, do you really think you would make things better? I think like one thing that like I noticed particularly with the sermon, and I think it is like, I don't know if it's because of the notes or what, but like you did have like a lot, like you maintained your level of energy like throughout your sermon. I think that was really good. I think before there were times where you would reach the end of your sermon and it would like slow down.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like that this time. So like.
Do you feel like tone-wise, I had to get back to critique, but do you feel like tone-wise, pacing, volume, like it was pretty monotonous, or do you feel like there was any sort of...
I thought it was like a lot better than like, like a lot of improvement.
Yeah.
Before.
I think your city's more.
Yeah.
Particularly volume.
Yeah.
I think you're not very loud in
Yeah.
this room. This is a hard room.
Yeah.
When there's only 3 people sitting in front of you, it's easy to not do much.
Yeah.
you need to be your biggest, right? Like Bullmore talks about being your biggest self up there. Like,
Yeah.
there was very little to no gesture.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I don't know
voice,
why.
right? You want to speak to the
Yeah.
back of the room.
Yeah.
So I think, especially volume dynamic,
Yeah.
I noticed that a lot. Like it was pretty quiet.
Hmm.
Not just
It's so weird to me.
monotone, but it was quiet.
Yeah.
Even quieter than how you're speaking during the feedback.
Yeah. I don't understand that at all. But for some reason that happens like every time. Oh well.
This was, I think like there's still like improvements to be made, but I think like you did open up more in this sermon than previous ones that I've seen you preach. So yeah.
Caleb, you got another?
Yeah. Yeah, having said, my other one was actually on delivery.
Hmm.
While you could stand to gain from somehow using more fluctuation, even in, like in the movements of your sermon, that would help us. I think like this is something where you want us to lean into if you somehow altered it.
Yeah.
Having said that, I've seen a lot of growth since I was just thinking from, I think the first sermon I heard you preach was Exodus 21. Or no, it was on one of the plagues. Anyway, I've seen growth, Christian,
I appreciate
in your delivery in terms of just looking comfortable up there.
Yeah.
And not being as like monotone.
Yeah.
I didn't think this was monotone.
Yeah. It's so weird, like talking with people, like I can talk someone through the sermon beforehand and like I'm engaged and like I love the way, and even thinking about it, like I'm like, oh, this is super cool. And then I get up there and I'm like, so today we are like, I don't know what happens. I don't know why. Yeah. I don't know why.
One thing I liked is that you use things like sounds like a God worth believing in. So by focusing on God as the source of justice, which is the question you're trying to answer, the thing you're trying to prove, kind of an ancillary like application of that is that makes him like worthy, good, like a positive thing that'd be worth believing in. And you didn't say like, so believe, but like, doesn't this sound appealing to you? And you did that later too. Like, wouldn't you want like to live in a world? You did something like this. I'm trying to remember exactly how you phrased it. Tell me what you want. Maybe you can help me.
Something like like don't you wish this was God or.
But you had a few minutes where you just actually painted like the desirability of, even if you don't believe in it, you don't believe in this work, doesn't it at least sound really great, like you would want it? And that's another thing C.S. Lewis used to say. The first thing to get like an evangelism for him is not proving it as true, but making them want it to be true. And that was like what you did in this. You made people want it.
Yeah, that was my goal. First point would just be like, wow, like I really want that to be God because he is true. And then second point is like, all right, if that's God, like, so yeah.
So throughout that
Gotta figure out that point two thing. Yeah.
It almost just be like, instead of like, because God says so, it's because God says this is what he wants. This is a kind of justice. We could talk about it off the video.
Yeah. Sweet.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.